soon as Ralph sits down,
we'll get back up.
Let me call the City Council meeting to order, September 27th, 2011, 7 p.m. I ask everyone in attendance, please rise for an invocation and a pledge of allegiance. Bow our heads, O Heavenly Father. As we begin our work this evening, I ask that you remember all those who worked so hard for this island, keeping it a beautiful place for visitors and a wonderful place for us to live. We ask that you guide us today in everything that we do, so that we may continue to keep this safe and nurturing community. It is in your name we pray. Amen. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Bergwerth. Here. Councilmember Battelli.
Here.
Councilmember Buchanan.
Here.
Councilmember Duffy.
Here.
Councilmember Loftus.
Here.
Councilmember Feeney.
Here.
Councilmember Stone.
Present.
Councilmember Thomas.
Here.
Mayor Cronin.
Present.
Administrator Tucker.
Here.
And Attorney Halverson.
Here.
Very good. Thank you all for coming, and thank everybody who's out there for spending your time with us this evening. Next item on our agenda is reading of the journal of previous meetings. You have in your packet the minutes from our last meeting on August 23rd. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. Moved and seconded. Any additions, deletions, corrections? None heard. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None heard. Thank you very much. Now we're up to the citizens' comment period on the agenda. Melinda, you're up.
Great. I made some copies here, Linda. I'm sorry, I was just in my mind counting county council and Dick, and I'm sorry I left you out of that. My name's Melinda Mitchell. I live at 702 Ocean Boulevard, and I saw we're on the agenda tonight. You're going to speak about the green space funds, and I know that I have heard several times that this is not city money, that no city money is going to be used to buy this lot on Paul Boulevard. But in my mind, once money is granted to the city, then it becomes city money. So this is a large expenditure for the city. This is city money, and I do think you need to listen to the residents before making an expenditure of this magnitude. I am not the kind of person where I'm going to go out and drag all my neighbors here to city council, but I will tell you that I have spoken to about 60 people, most of whom were totally unaware of this purchase, but when I talked to them about it, every single person I talked to was against it. I have not found a single person who is in favor. I know you have 50 letters in favor of this purchase, but I can tell you that I have spoken to many people who are against it. It's not that they think it is a bad idea, it's that they think there are much better ideas out there, and they think that city council maybe misread how these funds could be used and only looked at a small number of projects. I have seen in writing, there was recently a letter to the editor signed Isle of Palms Planning Commission, which has a lot of factual errors in it about how this money can be used. I will say in your defense that the county's website for a long time was incorrect about how these funds could be used. They just changed it about a year ago. But the city does not have to buy land with this money. And in fact, one of the reasons the CCPRC recommended that county council not approve this expenditure was because money doesn't go very far in buying land. You can use this money to buy conservation easements, and the money would go a lot further. But basically for the islands, they've suggested that a better use of the funds would be to make minor improvements on land that the island already owns. And I think that's a much better idea. County council, well, CCPRC said what they would like to see is something that would improve public access. Obviously, this lot on Palm Boulevard, we've got an access path, one lot in one direction and 3 lots in another direction, so that purchase is not going to do much to improve public access. So I would ask that you consider spending this money on something that would better improve public access to the beach. Kathy Ruff at the Green Space Initiative has verified for me that this is in fact correct. And I've talked to 3 city council people who have told me that when they voted for the purchase of this land, they did so because they thought they had to buy land with this money. And that is not what this money has to be used for. I would ask that you consider a conservation easement, and I have several ideas that I'd like you to consider. The 9 holes of the Wild Dunes Golf Course that are located outside the gates could be developed into homes at any time. You could purchase a conservation easement so that homes can never be built on that land. You could buy a strip of land all along the intercoastal waterway so that no docks could ever be built there. I think we've got enough docks in that area. I just know because where I'm living right now in Wild Dunes, there's not a public beach access path between 46th and 49th Avenue. I would like to see the city think about buying a strip of land for a public beach access in that area. But I also think that improving handicapped access to the beach would be a much better use of funds. It doesn't have to be wheelchair accessible, but we have a lot of older residents on this island who cannot navigate sand paths, and I think having a boardwalk would help them better get to the beach. Plus, when you have the dune walkover, you're protecting the dunes, which are so important when we have the next hurricane. So I would just like to ask that you consider some other uses of those funds. And in particular, I know you're trying to raise money for the balance of the purchase. I just hope that if you find a surplus in your budget, you're not going to consider using city funds for that purchase.
Thank you. Diane O'Toole.
Good evening. Diane O'Toole, 15 Ocean Park Court. I'm here to thank council for their support of my effort to establish a loan closet for medical assistance devices on this island for our residents and visitors, and also to acknowledge the administration for their efforts in moving this vision forward. And I understand now that all legal questions have been satisfied, and that this issue will now be on the agenda for the next public safety meeting next week. And I want to thank Chairman Vitelli for putting that on his agenda. And I look forward to furthering this conversation at that meeting. And so I just want to acknowledge and thank folks for pushing it forward. I am very pleased to know that we can look maybe to having that established. Appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anyone else like to speak? Jim?
I would like to. I didn't see a sign-up sheet in the back.
Okay, up here.
Okay, great, thank you.
You don't need a sign in.
I promise not to be an info commercial. My name is Jimmy Carroll. I live at number 11 Tabby Lane. I concur with everything Melinda said, but the one thing I would like the city to consider doing before a purchase like this is maybe have a referendum. Take the monkey off your back and let's let the people decide on our palms whether to buy the lot on Palm Boulevard to be used as a passive park. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else wishing to address the council? Just to amplify and clarify one thing, the holes that Melinda referred to on Wild Dunes, the 8 holes outside the gate, are already restricted, cannot be built upon. If they're given up as a golf course, they must be maintained green by the deeds. So that's already.
I just saw what happened in another municipality.
I know it's happened elsewhere, and believe me, we had lawyers research it, we have the documentation. Michael also knew all about it in his former life. So that one's already well protected. Independent of that, there's a restriction on it from the original beach company, which doesn't expire for another 15 years. That's independent. Okay, no one else wishing to address council? We'll move on to reports of standing committees. Let me walk you through the Ways and Means Committee meeting. We met on Tuesday the 20th, 5:45. Marty was absent, and we all wish we were with him. How was the morning? Don't. He obviously had a good time, but he's back with us now, so we're all better off. Our treasurer went through the financials. Our August financial statement was in line. We were ahead of budget. Ahead of budget means we're better than expected on revenue, and we're under budget on our expenses year to date, but it's only 2 months into the year, so it's a little early to look with great belief. When we look at our tourism schedules, there's been no action in the state accommodations tax or the county pass-through, but the municipal accommodations tax for August has been rendered, and it exceeded our budget by 14%, which basically set an all-time record for any particular month that we've ever experienced. So while that's the August payments, obviously reflects the July activity on the island, which I think everybody here understands was robust. The hospitality tax came through, was under our expectation, but we've also, the treasurer also confided that one of our principal payers has been tardy for 2 months now, and is, when they do pay up, we'll be paying the penalties associated with that, so we expect that to be coming forward here shortly. On our projects, beach restoration project, the only thing that's of note is not financial, but we do have the OCRM permit has been received, and I believe in effect, is it not?
The deadline for comments was the 14th.
Deadline's over,
Yeah.
okay.
We were good on comments.
So the only thing holding us up now is waiting on the Corps of Engineers permit, which is anticipated momentarily. The other projects involved, our drainage project, 53rd to 57th, is effectively complete. All the invoices are not in, but we expect to have a $145,000 surplus when that is done. And hopefully the county will allow us to apply those funds to the next project down the road. City Hall renovations are moving on. We still have some work to do to connect this building with the Public Works building before we can do anything with the former building department. On our old business, we discussed at the time that the staff had developed a request for qualifications. This was to have a consultant help us with beach access parking. It was a long discussion. The general consensus was to return it to the Planning Commission for additional consideration, and to have City Council planning conduct various workshops and hearings, if you will, with citizens, and maybe even in different groups on the island, since different parts of the island have different interests, before we go forward. So planning is to come forward with some recommendations for each area, and then we're going to convene a forum, probably here in this room or at the rec center, 2 or 3 of them, maybe 4, to understand what the planning is recommending and what the consideration is from the citizens, and then we'll decide at that time whether we need to have some more professional help in moving this forward. Under new business, we had a recommendation from the Real Property Committee for the approval of up to $30,000. This has to do with the Marina Fund for sampling and analysis of part of the dredging project. The dredging will be turning the corner at the marina, putting us out into the intercoastal, and the Corps of Engineers has come back and said they need to have a plan for sampling analysis to look at the materials that are in that dredging site, collect that as samples, and then do some tests on it. And that will be a costly endeavor. GEL has presented us with a proposal, and I'd like to make a motion that we approve up to $30,000 from the Marina Fund for GEL sampling and analysis for that particular area. So moved. Motion and seconded. For those where we're doing this up to $30,000, we're hoping we can get by with up to $10,000. The first 2 phases of the project of the testing are requiring approval of the plan and then doing the sampling, checking the grain size. If the grain size meets the Corps' requirements on size, meaning large size, then we won't have to go any further. And it's our engineers' hope, better than 50% chance, that we'll meet the grain size and won't have to do all of the detailed testing that would be required. That would take another up to $20,000. So we want to move this on in a timely fashion, so we're going to approve up to, hopefully we can vote on up to $30,000 to do all 3 phases, but it's my hope and expectation we'll only have to do the first 2 phases. Any discussion on this? None heard? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you all. We had a discussion, just for information, and that is that the Public Works Committee is authorizing work on storm drainage at 21st Avenue. We will be contracting it out, not using the county resources, but seeking reimbursement for that work from Charleston County stormwater fees. As all of us know, we pay a fee to the county for our NPDES performance regulations, and part of that is maintenance of the system. And so it's our claim and acknowledged by the county that we should be able to get reimbursed for this work out of the stormwater fee that the residents of this island pay. So this will be our first effort to seek funding from that effort, but that is going forward. We contribute a lot of money under that regulation to the county, but, so it better come forward. The amount of money we're asking for, it's small potatoes, all things considered. In addition, we moved on for discussion on the general fund. We have a gain, or a surplus, if you will, coming out of the general fund this year. Our expenses were well in control, and our revenue was up 15% over expectations, but our revenue was down. We have $571,000 in surplus coming out of the general fund. 15% of that is from increased revenue. 85% of it comes from reduced expenses. So I'd like to compliment the staff, Linda, every department head, every employee for paying attention to the expenses of the city, because to have a performance like that takes everybody on the oars, pulling in unison to keep us pointed in the right direction and keeping the water out of the boat. $571,000, probably record surplus coming out of the general fund. My intention would be to move that to our capital projects fund, which has been our normal practice. Our balance in our funding balance in our general fund is as it has been for the last couple of years, and will meet our 30% goal, which is 30% of our expenses, maintain the general fund balance by the end of the year, so we can meet all our obligations. So our fund general fund is well balanced. When we move this to our capital projects fund, we can then make a decision as to what to use those funds for, such things as paying down the debt on some of our municipal leases, or looking forward into other obligations we may be coming across in the next 2 or 3 years, instead of a sinking fund. So those 2 things are in play. We don't have to make a decision tonight on what to do, other than to move it into make a motion and move it into the capital projects fund, and then make a decision as we go through the next series of months is how will we do it, leave it there, or use it to pay down obligations, or set it up as a special reserve fund. So I'll make that as a motion. Do I have a second?
And I know you meant as unassigned.
It's unassigned.
As unassigned, yes, thank you.
I'm never going to get caught up on this new accounting terminology, unassigned funds. So thank you. Motion and seconded. Any discussion? Thank you very much. None heard. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? No nays. Thank you. All of our general funds and all of our special funds, particularly the tourism funds, balances are equal to, or basically better than they have been in the last couple of years. So the efforts of the administrator and the staff and all our funding activities is well received, and we're in excellent financial shape. We're meeting with the auditors for an exit review next week, I believe, and hopefully we'll get some additional good words from them. So the last item on our agenda at Ways and Means was a review of the open space acquisition process that we were about. So Linda put us through a PowerPoint presentation. So the room is set up to do it again.
Yes, so was asked to put this together for City Council to give council an update on where we were, and they requested that it be repeated here at the Ways and Means meeting. I know I'm playing to at least two in a hostile crowd. There may be more, but bear with me if you will. I'm going to need a little more light than that. Thank you. Yes, in my notes. And also, this is only 6 slides. I always like to warn people ahead of time how many slides they're about to look at, because there can be a collective groan in the room. There's only 6 slides here. The goal 3.4 of the City of Isle of Palms Comprehensive Plan is to promote the maintenance of green space throughout the island. And what I'm going to do is give you a little status of our attempts to acquire property for exactly that purpose, the maintenance of green space. What we're working on is acquisition of 3206 Palm Boulevard. And I can assure you, based on what these 9 bosses have told me, that $571,000 year-end gain will not go towards the purchase of this property. So do not worry about that. This particular piece of property has been in the same family since 1945 and has basically gone virtually unnoticed for quite a long time. It was very heavily vegetated. And in approximately June of 2010, things changed. The owner of the property decided that they would like to put it on the market. And as part of that process, they had the property limbed up and began to have some dialogue with the building department concerning the possible configuration of it as a residential site. And what that did was it attracted attention. The lot is quite beautiful. It is very heavily treed. It's got grand oaks on it. And it appears that those may have been oaks that actually survived Hurricane Hugo, because they're quite large and very grown, and there's sort of a rolling topography to the property that suggests that those trees were protected due to the rolling topography during the storm. We don't have any way of knowing that for sure, but it looks that way. So, when it was all limbed up, there was actually an Isle of Palms resident who noticed the beauty of the property and said, you all ought to consider trying to purchase that property and maintain it in perpetuity for the city and all of its residents and visitors. And so we just thought we would open some dialogue. We met with the representative of the owner to see if they would have any interest and see if they would be willing to work with us. The green space money that Ms. Mitchell spoke about earlier, you have to have a cooperative property owner in order to be able to utilize those funds. They have to be willing to have you purchase their property, because there are lots of things that go on early in the application process. That means that you have to have a willing owner. The city has made this would be the city's 3rd attempt at acquiring property, and the city has made 2 other attempts. One was on the property at 45th and Palm Boulevard. And in that particular instance, while the owner was cooperative, they gave us a very small window of time to try to assemble the required amount of money. And, for sums of money that large, small windows can be months. It sometimes takes years to be able to assemble that type of money. And we were not able to meet that challenge. And so, as you know now, that property has been is in the preliminary stages of development. There's a cul-de-sac constructed on it, and the intent is for the site to have residential homes on it. The other property that we looked at and considered is a property that we refer to as the 7th Avenue Triangle. There's a triangle of undeveloped property. It doesn't have any trees on it or anything. It's open space that's at 7th Avenue and Palm. That property is privately held. It is a buildable lot. However, the owner was not willing to allow us to even have the property appraised because they have intentions for the property themselves. So we were excited to find that the particular property owners of 3206 were willing to work with us and willing to allow us to do the things that would be necessary to try to acquire the property. Other attractive things about the property is, of course, it goes to mean high tide like many of the lots in there, and it is situated right in the dead center of the 7 miles of the island. So it's, you know, it's such a wonderful representation of what the Isle of Palms looked like prior to development. It's just very natural looking. So in March, the city had the property appraised with permission of the property owner. And then in April, council passed a resolution authorizing the submittal of the grant application for the Greenbelt funds. And subsequent to that, all of those materials were turned in. 2 out of the 3 review committees approved the process. Ms. was correct. Charleston County PRC was not favorable regarding it, but the Greenbelt Committee was, and County Council has approved it, and we're in the process of reviewing the grant agreement at this time. And so we have had a successful application for $474,000 towards an appraised value of roughly $1.3 million on the property. So you can see we have a gap to fill. So if the city acquires the property, what's the intent for its use? We would go back and trim the vegetation much like was done when the owners first thought about putting the property on the market. And in this picture, you can kind of see what it looked like then. It doesn't look that way now. We would get rid of, you know, the poisonous vegetation that's on the property and try to mitigate its coming back. And then perhaps have a pedestrian pathway through the property for everyone to just enjoy the property, you know, either walking through it or just riding by and looking at it and looking through it is a pleasurable experience. The parking for the property would remain unchanged. There's some parking that is actually out on Palm Boulevard right away. There would be no intention of putting additional parking in. The things that we would not be doing on the property is that we would not be putting a parking lot on the property. We would not be developing a playground on the property. And there is no intention at this time to use city funds for the furtherance of the acquisition. So next steps. Obviously we need more money to even begin to open a dialogue concerning closing the deal. So we're going to submit 2 other grant applications, a application for the Land and Water Conservation Fund, and we've had a successful track record with grant funds administered by state PRT in that some of these funds were utilized before in a grant that was written back in the mid-'80s to acquire the Front Beach property parking lots. And those, at least one of those 2 lots has some restrictions on it today as a result of the participation of those grant funds. And then we also are going to move forward with an application to the South Carolina Conservation Bank in January of 2012. We are hoping that there can be an effort on the part of those folks who are supportive of this endeavor to begin to develop donations to help to go towards the purchase price. We've received a commitment for one already that was just totally unsolicited. The resident heard about this endeavor and thought it was wonderful and said, you know, sign me up for this amount of money. So we've already had some response to that. And so that's what will be happening next. I did want to touch on some of the things that were mentioned earlier related to other uses of Greenbelt funds other than the acquisition of property. Those uses are boardwalks, footbridges, and they're for coastal communities only that are in the Charleston area. Boardwalks, footbridges, unpaved trails, unpaved roadways, and unpaved small parking areas. One of the things that we thought about is there are very limited sources of money for the acquisition of property. There are multiple different sources of money to do these types of activities that were just mentioned. The city successfully got a community development block grant, and that is what we use to improve the 21st Avenue access. It is also, these would be allowable uses for things like accommodations tax funds as well. So there are other sources of money that could achieve these kinds of things for the city, but they're very limited sources of money for the acquisition of property. So it just seemed like putting that almost $500,000 towards an acquisition, if we could effect it, would have a big impact. The other thing to know about using Greenbelt money for improvements like walkovers and things of that nature is all of the same restrictions that would go on a piece of property like 3206 Palm Boulevard, if you use Greenbelt funds there, would apply to any property that we built a walkover with the money. So in other words, we would have to put those same restrictions on some of our beach access paths. That may not matter, but it would then diminish what flexibility that the city might have if for some reason, at some time, it needed to do something with some of the beach access paths. So for that reason, we chose to apply for the funds to acquire property versus using it for some of these other things.
Okay, thank you very much. Lights, camera, whoa, is everything nodding off back there? Oh, all right, moving out of Ways and Means, let's move into the Public Safety Committee. Report, Michael, providing us the full binding time.
All right, well, thank you, Mayor. As Assistant Chair, I am handling this report. Marty was on a well-deserved vacation. Public Safety met on September 13th at 5:30. All members were present with the exception of the Chair. Discussion was no contracts were signed for over $10,000. Discussion was on the safety of our public safety folks regarding surfers during the pass-through of Hurricane Irene. The city made a decision to not support any water rescue at a certain point because it was deemed too unsafe for our folks. And discussion was on what could be done, and basically the committee decided to ask Charleston County to look forward as a island-wide thing, and not only Isle Ponds, but Sullivan's Island, Folly Beach, to advise people not to use, not to be surfing, not to be in dangerous waters that would jeopardize our public safety people. So they're going to be looking at that and hopefully coming up with some way to do an island-wide, regional-wide announcement of that. So highlights on the fire department was 144 incidents, 78 were service calls for EMS. On the police, dispatchers handled 3,400, actually 4,600 calls, and 3,400 of those were for the police department. On miscellaneous, we discussed kiteboarders. There's been some discussion by residents about kiteboarders coming a little bit too close to swimmers. There is a regulation that kiteboarders need to be 100 feet away from swimmers on the beach, and that's not always taking place. And the chief said they would continue to look in that. We've not typically, if we do see something out of line, a warning is given, but obviously it's a concern. And not all the kiteboarders is just at the southern end of the island. It's actually the kiteboarders are going out throughout the whole island, so it's something to be aware of. Our next meeting is set up for October 6th at 5:30 in the Public Safety Building.
Very good. Any questions? I encourage all the citizens, if they're out on the beach and they find somebody who's endangering them or their kids or somebody they see, some kiteboarder or surfer or something, just call the police. They'll respond promptly and deal with it. You don't have to sit there and worry about it. The police will take care of it. Any other questions? Nothing? Kurt? Let's move on. Public Works, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Public Works met Wednesday, September 7th at 4 p.m. We reordered our agenda so we could have a little discussion in regards to stormwater drainage. It wasn't so little, but the long and short of it is that, as the mayor so aptly told us, that the county council has a lot of funds for stormwater drainage for the island, and they're taking care of it. One of the questions I asked was a particular project that we have on the books with county, and that was the Sparrow Drive drainage project, and that has been reviewed, and it is before county council tonight, I believe, for the recommendation to accept the lowest bid on that project. So if that goes through, we would expect a notice to proceed in 30 days and get that project going. So that's a big plus.
Very good.
Other than that, I'll remind everybody, if they don't already realize, garbage collection is now down to once a week after the post-summer rush.
You see the smile on Donnie's face? She kind of gives it away.
One of the other items with regards to drainage was, as the mayor mentioned, was the 21st Avenue project, which we're going to go committee approved and wanted to move forward with on that. The other items that we looked at were purchase of a lawnmower, and I want to congratulate Director Pitts on getting a very good bid, which is about $5,000 lower than what we budgeted in the 2012 budget. And he's moving forward on the purchase of that. One other reminder for folks, Water and Sewer Company is planning on doing some water main replacement. It'll be replaced between 30th and 41st Avenue on Cameron Boulevard, and from Palm to Cameron along 32nd, 33rd, 35th, 36th, 37th, 39th. I'm sure you will get something from the Water and Sewer Company, but this is just a heads up to let you know that it's coming. Other than that, we are scheduled to meet October 4th at 4 p.m. Oh, one other item, if I may, if I take leave. Monitoring the county council with regards to single stream recycling. They have expanded the program, and I would like to make a motion that this council resolve to be part of the single stream recycling program of the county. I'd like to kind of make that in the form of a motion.
Second.
So this is just putting our foot forward, saying, please, put us in the single stream recycling.
Right. To get us on the list, let them know that we as a community find that recycling is important and it would be good for the welfare of the island, and to get us on the list. We would probably get there a little bit quicker. I mean, expect to see it in 12 or 24 months countywide anyways, but we might be able to get it sooner. And if we can get it sooner, I think that would be better.
You want to explain exactly what that is? There might be people watching on TV that don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, okay. The single stream recycling is basically putting it where we separate our paper, plastics, and cans. We would simply, all the households would be getting a 95-gallon trash can where they would put just all the recyclables that they have in just one container, and would go out to the county to pick up on a normal cycle. So you no longer have to separate. And you no longer have to have lots of small little containers. You'd have one 95-gallon garbage can, which I believe is a little bit bigger than what our large garbage cans are, right, Donnie?
90 gallons.
Yeah, so it's 5 gallons bigger for recycling, and that's what the essence of single stream is.
The county provides the container.
Yep.
We just have to get it to the curb.
Exactly.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Please.
One side benefit of this, which we have definitely have seen this year and in the last couple of years in recycling, is the dramatic drop of our garbage weight. We've been able to make less runs to the landfill and saving tax dollars. So this, to me, this is a great way to move forward and to continue to increase the amount of recycling we do on the island, and I think this is and save tax dollars. I guess what do we do with the other blue containers if we move them?
One thing at a time. I assume they'll be recycled.
There is a lot.
I think you would save them for excess.
If you have any questions about this or need more information, the county website explains the whole process and the benefits of this.
Okay. All right, any other discussion? All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor of single stream recycling and putting our nose forward? Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None heard. The only thing I'm going to bring up, we've talked about it, and that's the NPDES county management of that process for us. Frankly, it bothers me. I haven't talked to people, so I'm a little bit exposed here. Having the 21st Avenue work, have us go out to do it as opposed to the county doing it because county tells you, the committee, that in order to do it, they would have to go seek county council approval. That means county council is having to approve the expenditures of monies that we provide them. Seems to be a little too political. I only should be there. Linda properly asked for an accounting of all our funds, whether we ever get that or not, but at least the question's been asked and the process has been started. I think we need to go further in this to really see if they're doing the work that we're paying for. So it's not. I made a big note here because I don't want to be spending $100-some thousand if we're only going to get $15,000 in return. If you follow my drift. Okay, great. Thank you. Recreation Committee, please.
Sure, the rec committee met 6th of September. The committee had not met over the summer, which allowed staff to concentrate on their myriad of summer programs. If you haven't looked at the beautiful rec department activity book, please get a copy of it. If you can't find something for your family and friends to take part in, you're not looking hard enough, because there's something for everyone, even your dog. So over the summer, actually right now, so you still have time to leave if you want to. They are doing auditions for the new play, which is tonight at 6:30 is Magnolia Room, Catholic Schoolgirls. So anyone who would like to rush out now and go audition, feel free to audition. Just an example of what the rec department is doing. The rec is the center and the heart of the island, and that's a given. We have babysitting courses, ballet, RA Fitness, which is a new core fusion of ballet and Pilates, voter education, all sorts of dog obedience. It goes on and on. Evening yoga, gather and stitch, guitar lessons, hip hop. We've had in June 49 people, July 42 people, August 32 people. That's every night on Thursday. All sorts, the teenagers, the middle school dance. I don't know how many people attended.
About 250.
There you go. Mahjong, not 250, only a few, but still there. Senior exercise, for example. June 51, July 47 participants, August 51 participants. Frankly, you have to get on a waiting list to get in that class. So you're doing a great job with the rec department, and Norma Jean and her limited staff are pulling rabbits out of a hat all the time. Our beach run had 328 participants, 45 youths. The sponsors deserve a big round of applause for that. This Saturday is the connector run, so note the connector will close at 7 o'clock, and I think it hopes to be open again by 10. So pick up your packets and run or walk. A good example of the impact of the rec department on the community, the Camp Sunshine Campers, which is the summer programs. 5 to 7-year-olds, we had 180 take part. 8 to 12-year-olds, 181. Week camp, 97. Overwhelming, probably 90%, 95% of those people were Isle of Palms residents. So this is a residential program and well taken care of. The staff reported the frequent unsolicited comments about the rec center that I'd like to share. Quote, this building is really beautiful. Quote, my children love your playground. Quote, this building is kept so clean and nice. Everyone is so sweet. And you offer so many great programs here. So take a look at the guide, please, and have fun. Our next meeting is November 2nd, 4 p.m. at City Hall.
Woo.
I had more.
Tough act.
It was a long summer.
Now that's a tough act to follow. Any questions for the rec?
I'd just like to make a comment, and since we are in the middle of the election for city council seats, the billboard reads city council meeting, underneath it, auditions at the rec. So a new way to get attention.
Who said you can't have fun up here? All right, moving on. No personnel committee meeting, but the personnel committee would.
We had no meeting, and our next meeting is October 5th at 5:45 right here. And the safety winners are Recreation Department Nick Dyko, I guess, Fire Department Lynn Golden, Police Department Frank Fitzpatrick, and Public Works Joseph Washington.
Very good. Real Property Committee, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Real Property met on September 8th at 8:30 a.m. All members of the committee were present. Discussion was on beach restoration. Emily reported that the island did sustain some beach erosion. The good news is, we anticipated to have worse than it showed up, but, and basically a permit was sought out by Wild Dunes, and permission was given for them to bring sand in to repair some damage close to the golf course. Another issue going on is the permit, as Mayor mentioned, everything's moving along. The appeals date ended on September 14th, and hopefully we're having hope everything will be wrapped up by the end of this month on Friday. Okay. As far as dredging, a consent agreement has been reached with OCRM, and that money will be, basically they asked for in-kind services, and the city has agreed to pay $33,000 to be used by Charleston County as far as mosquito abatement. We also talked about, which we've already voted on, as far as the need to do some testing for soil, and it really comes down to the size of the grain. Any soil that we find during the testing, if it's sand size and not smaller, will help us save money on the dredging project and eliminate more studies. So that's the key. And last but not upbeat is was 1301 Pond, the building department. We are doing a study of asbestos and hazardous material study, and right now that is going on and being managed by Chief Graham. And the next meeting is set up for October 12th, 8:30 a.m. in the second floor conference room here in City Hall.
Good, thank you very much. Any questions for the real property? No? Okay, let's move on. Standing committees, no accommodations tax. You have in your packets the Board of Zoning Appeals and Planning minutes. Any questions? See no hands, no heads moving. Okay, we did receive a petition from residents on 54th Avenue. They are asking for a resolution of stain on the road as a result of groundwater being pumped from the project where we put in the stormwater drainage system. So I'm referring now to the Public Works Committee, who will be referred immediately to Donnie, who will, I suspect, shortly take care of it, and we'll get back to the property owners who are concerned about a stain on the road. Okay. No other bills in our possession, no other ordinances. We have before us a proclamation, and the administrator is in fine voice tonight, so I'll ask her to read it, please.
Joint proclamation. Be it proclaimed, whereas we, the mayors and councils of the 5 East Cooper municipalities, acknowledge the presence of a South Carolina Army National Guard unit based within our proximity, and whereas that unit being designated Company C, 4th Battalion, 118th Infantry Light, and whereas the importance of this National Guard unit to the national, state, and community safety is acknowledged, and whereas the deployment of this National Guard unit as a part of this country's war against terrorism will result in the absence of a family member and or leader for an extended period of time, and whereas our municipalities wish to voice their support, well wishes, and prayers for a safe and speedy return home, and whereas the need and desire to express support in an official manner has arisen, now therefore we, the mayors and representative councils of said municipalities, do hereby proclaim Saturday, November 19th, 2011 as We Care Day, in witness whereof we have hereunto set our hands this 19th day of November in the year of our Lord 2011, and it has all of the East Cooper mayors, Isle of Palms, Mount Pleasant, Sullivan's Island, Allendale, and McFarland.
I have a motion to approve the proclamation.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and seconded. Any discussion? I certainly hope not. Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. I'm not even going to ask for a no vote. I wish it well. No other business. 2 other things to note for your calendar. On October 12th at 4:30, there will be a fire prevention parade. So if you hear a lot of engines, don't get disturbed. But if you want to join in, I'm not sure which way that we're heading, whether Sullivan's is coming here or whether we're going to Sullivan.
It will start over here
If
and
we go that way,
terminate.
okay. So that'll be 4:30 on the 12th. We always get calls about what's happening. Turns out it's just fire prevention. The other thing to note is in November, second weekend in November, I think it's the 11th and 12th. This is probably the first, but we'll have 3 more times to remind you. Charleston County, the city, have agreed with the private firms that they will construct a tent on the county parking lot for a 2-day event we're going to have on that weekend. It's a private party, and it's going to be a big tent. And maybe a few animals, I don't know. But the city has approved it, fire and police have approved it, county council, not county council, county PRC has worked out all the details, but it's going to look strange on the island. So I'm just letting you know right now that it's going on and it's understood. So, no, we don't have invitations yet. But we'll try and work on that if it helps. Anything else to be brought before council?
Believe it or not, I missed something in the rec report. Very important thing, upcoming events include the Halloween Carnival, which is 5 p.m. on Monday, October 31st. So there are no contests for adult costumes because Norma Jean would win anyway. But for all the children age groups, 5:30 is the costume competition.
You retired the trophy.
Yeah.
Nice. Oh, very good. That's a very good affair and well attended. I don't know how many. What do we usually get there? 400 or 500? Okay. No other action for council? Motion to adjourn?
So, second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We're out of here. Thank you very much. 55 minutes.